Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video, I'm going to go over the damage changes that'll be coming on reset for Rep Paladins. So basically, there's going to be a big change to the Paladin side of the talent tree coming out on Tuesday on the anniversary patch, October 22nd patch. It's going to be a huge patch, and there's also going to be like a complete rework of the Paladin talent tree. In doing so, we're going to lose a little bit of throughput. Throughput nodes have been removed, and we're going to get a little bit of a buff to compensate for that. And we're going to talk about like how much damage we're actually going to lose. When I went over this in the patch note video, I speculated that the 6% would probably offset the nerfs we would basically receive from losing the throughput nodes or whatever on the Paladin tree. And some people actually, the people who do the simulations and stuff actually do the math on this. They mathed it out. I was pretty close to being correct, but it does look like it could possibly be a nerf. We'll talk about why and in what situations and stuff like that. So the changes, again, if you didn't watch the video with all the changes, Paladin, all the Paladin tree is getting reworked. That's what all this new talent stuff is. We will go over this extensively. I'll have a video out either Tuesday night or Wednesday night, going over this extensively. I kind of went over these talents when they first were released, like on the PTR. This was a while ago now, probably a month or so ago, maybe more. I'll go over them again in a video when it's live and talk about, okay, these are the new throughput talents. These are the choice talents. There's not a lot of new throughput, but there's a lot more choice and utility. Just like I thought before when this first came out, I do think this is a net good direction to go, having almost all the talents on the Paladin side be this like utility. There's a couple weird ones, I think, but overall it's pretty good. One thing I did speculate too about a month ago or whenever it was that they first released it, consecrated ground was removed from the ret tree and put into the Paladin tree. I speculated that maybe they would make some changes to the ret side, and there was no changes to the ret side other than removing that talent. So they didn't do pretty much anything other than what they first announced, which was a little bit surprising. So that's what all this is all these things are changed. They updated some things, they removed some things. And then to kind of try to make up for this, they did Retribution damage increased by 6%, Shield of Righteous damage, Word of Glory healing increased by 10%. So more healing, honestly, which isn't a bad thing for, especially if you're doing any kind of solo content or whatever, using Word of Glory a lot, or Mythic Plus even, if you're trying to keep your group alive with Word of Glory. So this damage increased by 6%. It turns out it's not going to be quite enough, at least based on the math, to edge out, based on the simulations, to edge out the amount of damage we're going to lose. So what we're basically losing is we're losing some cooldown reduction from the Blessing of Dawn talent thing, or Dusk. I can't remember which one it is, but that talent got solidified into one talent. Basically, we can pull it up here actually, so we don't need these notes anymore. Let's go ahead and pull this up. So down here, there's two talents of Dusk and Dawn, and then there's Seal of Order. These kind of got condensed, and then there's like Fading Light. These kind of got all condensed into one talent, but we lose the CDR, the cooldown reduction of our generators from this. And then the big loss that I think I probably didn't take seriously enough is the Seal of Alacrity, which is haste by 4% and a little bit of Judgment cooldown 1 second as well, with the 2 points in there. So the 4% haste is really the big thing we're losing here. But I want to contextualize this in this video and explain like why that is. So basically, we just saw in the patch notes, we got about a 6% aura buff. So all of our damage increased by 6%. The math says we're losing about 3% damage, single target. By math, I mean the simulations, right? Simulations say we're going to lose like 3% damage, right? And I'll trust that. I have no reason not to trust that. 3% damage loss even after the 6% gain. So it was like a 9% damage loss, supposedly, right? So this is largely due to the haste, actually. So yeah, it does stink to lose the CDR or whatever, but 4% haste is actually a lot right now. And why is that? Because we're in season 1 and stats are very finite. We aren't reaching diminishing returns yet on stats. So just to lose 4% haste is kind of a big deal. Now, what I don't know, and they probably did this, right? What I don't know is if they kind of like switched up the stat allocations on like the tier profile to maybe have more haste on your gear. Obviously, then you're pulling that from somewhere else. You're pulling that from your crit. You're pulling that from your mastery. So it's still going to be a loss, but maybe it would be a slightly losing less damage if you did that. But maybe they did that, and that is the lowest they could get the number, right? And the lowest they could get the numbers to that amount. And that's very possible as well. But it will. I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is in season 2, this removal of the haste node won't feel as bad. In season 3, you probably won't notice it at all. So it's a nerf to season 1, a little nerf. 3% is very small, and it's a single target, and overall it won't feel like that big of a nerf because the haste would have diminishing returns anyways. So it's technically a nerf because you'd always rather just have the free haste and then have 4% more mastery or whatever, right? You'd always rather have that. So it is a nerf. But as we get into diminishing returns on our stats throughout the expansion, it'll actually feel like less of a nerf as we go on. So let's say they never add any more throughput to any Paladin side talents ever again, or they never tune us ever again, which is not going to happen, right? But let's just say they did that. We would always feel this nerf more at the very beginning of an expansion compared to the end of the expansion. It's also worth pointing out that in Mythic Plus, this nerf will not be felt as much as you feel it in Raid, in single target. In Mythic Plus, you'll still feel it a little bit. I would guess that number is lower than 3% in Mythic Plus, like 2% or 1% or something like that, because a lot of your stats are kind of more equalized in AoE settings. So on the bosses, you might feel it a little bit. But in the AoE settings, while you still would feel it, right? If you have less haste, you're going to be doing less damage, but you won't feel it as dominantly as you would in single target. So, because like haste is much better than verse in single target, but in AoE, it's not that much better than verse, for example, right? And so haste doesn't have as much value. So losing it doesn't hurt you as much either, would be the way I would try to phrase that to people. So overall, like I said, we'll go over these are the old talents, of course, right? This is on the current game. I can't even get into the PTR. It's been down for a couple days, at least for me. It might be the times that I try to get on or whatever. But this whole side will be redone, and we will go over that on, again, a video coming out either Tuesday or Wednesday in depth. We'll go through all the talents. We'll talk about the new throughput talents, the new useful talents, talents for Raid, talents for Mythic Plus, all that kind of stuff. And we'll kind of frame it as like an update to the You're at Paladin guide video coming out. But I just wanted to let everybody know, if you do feel a little bit weaker on Tuesday when on reset or whatever, if you feel a little bit weaker, it is because we are losing the CDR from the talent of, I don't even know which one it is. It might be Seal of Order, one of these talents down here. And we're losing Seal of Alacrity. And the buffs we've been given to compensate won't fully compensate right now, but will mostly compensate later in the expansion. I know that doesn't make a ton of sense, but because it is still technically a nerf, we're losing something without gaining anything. Well, 6%, but I digress. That 6% will feel better later on. It's hard to explain because it's like, oh, values of things change as we get more of it, right? Like it's basically something means less to you as you have more of it. But yeah, so I just want people to know that it is technically on the simulations. Like if you go simulate your character, you'll notice yourself probably have a slight nerf on Tuesday, unless you had really ridiculously high haste, I guess. Like let's say you had like 30-something% haste. Maybe it'll barely even be a nerf to you. Maybe it'll be like a 1% nerf or something, right? But if you have just like a normal amount of haste, it'll be like a 3% nerf or somewhere around there. So yeah, that's what's coming out on Tuesday when this all comes out and goes live. And like I said, I'm looking forward to breaking it down. I love the new talents, and so like I said, I'll be breaking that down next week for you and going over every single talent on the new Paladin tree. So that's it for this one, guys. Minor nerf, but nothing really to worry about or that I would really care that much about personally. And yeah, obviously we don't love being nerfed, but it's very minor. They tried to compensate. Maybe they didn't quite hit the compensation correctly, but overall it's fine. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.